My name is Mark Noble, and I'm a firefighter, and I'm dying from a brain tumor. A brain tumor I most likely got from my job as a firefighter. I have been a firefighter for more than 19 years now. Exactly 11 months ago today, I had a little burning sensation on my face. I started getting some numbness down my arm and through my fingers, and then it would shoot down the side of my body. A friend who's a doctor suggested I go get a MRI. The good part was that they actually found some gray matter in there. The bad part was they found something else, about the size of a golf ball. The next week, I was up for brain surgery. The day before the surgery, I essentially had stroke symptoms, where I lost my left side, I couldn't control my mouth. They drilled a hole inside of my head and pulled some goop out. It was something called an anaplastic oligodendroglioma, which is a mouthful. And believe me, I had never heard of an anaplastic oligodendroglioma until that day. It took me several months before I could even pronounce it. I had the surgery, and about 2 weeks later, I went on to radiation, where they blasted radiation through my head 5 days a week for 7 weeks. I lost most of my hair. So that started my merry path with brain cancer. When I first got the call from the hospital, things were going great for me with a job I loved, and I was engaged to be married, 2 sons, 17 and 19. I got the MRI back, I was diagnosed, and they gave me 3 months. I was planning on getting married in August. I got married that next week. It was a mad rush. My first goal point in life was to live to see my older son graduate from high school. And that was only 2 months away. And I wasn't sure I was going to do it. The reason I'm sitting here today is that I want to prevent firefighters from getting brain cancer. I want to prevent them from getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I want to help them not to get liver cancer, bladder cancer, kidney cancer. These are all things we can empower ourselves to prevent. Since I've gotten this brain tumor, I've looked into the studies concerned with what it is that we're exposed to that's causing these cancers to kick off. One of the main ones is benzene. Boston did a study of 200 firefighters. They mounted air monitoring gear on the firefighters, and they found that benzene was detected in over 92% of the fires and at well above OSHA permissible levels. Buffalo found that benzene was second only to carbon monoxide, and they were finding benzene in low smoke environments. So we're talking about the fires where you go in and it's just something minor, pot on the stove where, nobody throws on an air pack for that. You can hardly see any smoke. And yet they have elevated benzene levels, which we're exposing ourselves to. Dallas, of 100 fires, benzene was found at all fires, regardless of the material burned. And plus they identified over 70 other organic chemicals, such as PCBs, in the products of combustion that we are exposed to. We have always considered the synthetics in modern construction so much more hazardous than combustibles in older buildings. And you think, what, I need an air pack for this type of fire for? You're wrong. Those houses also had tar in the roofs, and they also had insulation on wires. The older style construction with the more standardized combustibles and not the new modern hybrid materials are killing people just as fast. Asbestos is another we're exposed to. Studies in New York found very elevated levels during the overhaul phase of a fire. When we're digging around trying to figure out cause. The conventional wisdom has been with asbestos, it'll get in your lungs and you'll get asbestosis. That is a concern, but you don't need to have an elevated level of asbestos. Even small amounts are filtering from your lungs into your bloodstream and are triggering cancers in your body. We may think, oh, there's not much asbestos here, and be nonchalant about wearing an air pack, but it's killing us. Another one is PAHs. They're known carcinogenics, and they've been found as a byproduct of the burning of tar, and also from rubbers. So car fires, burning tires, hoses, the smoke coming from roofing is full of these things. Every residential or structural fire that breaches a roof, or that we cut a vent hole, dropping that chunk of roof down into the fire, we're burning more of this tar, producing carcinogens. OSHA says 3/4 part per million. In fires, they're up above 20 parts per million. Studies were conducted in the New York, Boston, and Los Angeles fire departments, specifically in regards to diesel exhaust emissions. And they found firefighters had an incredible exposure. We fire up a fire engine in an apparatus bay that spews that exhaust fumes out into the building. Well, this is the same building we live in, and it's been found the particulates from diesel exhaust stay in the atmosphere for a long time. So you're sleeping and eating your dinner, but during that whole time, you're sucking these things in. They're attacking your body. This is an in-house carcinogen that we can control. These studies have shown what we're exposed to, and they show firefighters have an elevated risk of developing and dying from certain cancers, brain cancer for one. One study found firefighters with 10 to 19 years experience, which is right where I fall in, have a 3.5 times greater risk of getting brain cancer than the general population. Leukemia and lymphoma, firefighters are 3 times more likely to get these cancers. The combustion of rubber and tar is a major factor of that. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, firefighters are twice as likely to get that. Multiple melanoma, 2.25 times more likely. And with protracted exposure, the risks skyrocket. After 30 years, firefighters are 10 times more likely. Bladder cancer, firefighters are 3 times more likely. Kidney cancer, firefighters are 4 times more likely. Prostate cancer, firefighters were twice as likely to get it. Testicular cancer, 2.5 times as likely. Large intestine cancer, firefighters were twice as likely. Liver cancer, twice as likely. Skin cancer, 3 times as likely as the general population. And those PAHs and the PCBs through dermal contact are a problem. It's not just inhaling it, it's exposing our skin to it. When we say that firefighters are 3 times more likely to get bladder cancer, know that the rate of bladder cancer for the general population in the United States is 15 per 100,000. We're talking for firefighters, 45 per 100,000. It's not that the sky is falling, but what's important about all this is we need to have an awareness. We're exposing ourselves to something that the general population isn't, and we need to take measures to take care of that. Knowing firefighters are at a much higher probability than the general population to get these diseases, the unions have wanted to correct that and have worked to make presumptive legislation so you don't have to prove you got one of these diseases from the job to get covered with workman's compensation. In the state of Washington and 37 other states, presumptive legislation covers most of those diseases linked to firefighters. Financially, the difference this has made to me is with the presumptive legislation, I'm eligible for 60% of my salary for life. And without it, I would have to rely on my retirement. I would be eligible for $648 a month. That is what I would have to live on without the presumptive legislation. Plus, my medical is covered, and it had an immediate effect for me. I no longer had to be restrained by the confines of my medical plan. My medical plan did not allow me to go see a neuro-oncologist, which for brain cancer is the only person suitable for dealing with it. The doctors I had seen before, if I had followed their advice, I'd be dead by now. To qualify for this presumption, you have to meet certain criteria. No smoking. If you're a smoker, you're out of it. You're not covered. Those fancy cigars, which are the trend this day, is that worth not being covered by this presumptive legislation? is any smoking worth it? If you don't think smoking that cigar is a big deal, if you don't think that smoking in general is a big deal, you're looking at $650 versus 60% tax-free. And that's something that you can do to protect your family, and you are not doing that by continuing to smoke because you are not eligible for this coverage. One area that we can really control for ourselves as firefighters is diesel exhaust. We have the ability to do that. The fire stations now have exhaust extraction systems in them, but do we always use them? When it's 3 in the morning and pouring down rain, are you taking the time to hook up that diesel exhaust system? And more importantly, are we taking the time to hook them up before we back the rigs into the station? It's a pain to do that, particularly when you want to get back into bed. But what you're doing is, as you're backing that rig in, you're filling the station full of diesel exhaust, which you're going to be inhaling for the rest of your shift, and your fellow firefighters will be inhaling into the next shift. There's a 24-hour lingering effect of that stuff. And all day long, rigs are coming in and out. And if you're too lazy to hook that thing up for yourself, you should be hooking it up for your fellow firefighters, because you're killing them. You are literally killing them by not doing that. Air packs. There isn't an excuse to take off your air pack before the environment is perfectly clear. If you're in there overhauling and don't have an air pack on, you're killing yourself. It's that simple. It's not that big of a deal wearing an air pack. And the ones they have these days, and particularly positive pressure ones, where you're automatically supplied with air and you don't have to suck it out of the tank, there's no excuse. Wear your air pack. Gloves. Wear your latex gloves. When you're doing fire investigating, if we're going to look at that piece of computer that burned or whatever, just that contact in your skin, you're exposing yourself to those PAHs and PCBs, injecting that into your body. Don't touch charred, combusted material. The other thing that we can do for ourselves is to lobby and get more funding for better study, because these studies aren't terribly current, and the statistics are all based on death from the cancers. Firefighters as a whole have better medical coverage than the general population, and we're generally in better shape, which puts us in better condition to survive these cancers. And one thing I found interesting, there's no mention of uterine cancer and breast cancer. They're ignoring women so far. As women firefighters join the ranks, if they're going to show significant increases in those areas, I don't know, but it's something I definitely think needs to be studied and followed up on. Knowing what I know now, after all of this, would I still do this job? Yep, I sure would. It's the best job in the world. But you know what? I'd do it differently. I'd wear my air pack probably a little more. I'd make sure that exhaust hose was hooked up on those dark and stormy nights when I wanted to get back to bed after the 5th run in the middle of the night. I'd do that. I'd try to take better care of my other firefighters. So yeah, it's a great job, and yes, we put ourselves at greater risk, but let's at least try to control those risks that we do have control of. You know what's going on with me, and my prognosis has gotten better with my continued chemotherapy. Every course I take, life expectancy goes up. So, I mean, it looks like I'm going to see my younger kid graduate from high school. I didn't think I was going to see that. Tell you, it's hard watching these rigs drive down the street. I still want to be a firefighter.